Welcome to the Object-Oriented UX podcast, a podcast about tackling complexity head-on, gracefully organizing massive amounts of information, and designing scalable, future-proof, and of course, naturally intuitive object-oriented user experiences. An OOUXer is a powerful blend of information architect, business analyst, facilitator, and UX strategist. If this sounds like you or what you aspire to, you are so in the right place. I'm Sophia Prater, UX designer, chief evangelist of Object-Oriented UX, and your host. Let's jump into it.
Okay, y'all. What is the actual point of Object-Oriented UX and this ORCA process that I talk so much about? So the funny thing is when we create products as UX designers, it's so easy to get mired in the features. And of course, our product owners do this, stakeholders do this sometimes, and we do it. I've been guilty of doing it when I'm working on products, is to get excited about the shiny features and forget about the actual outcomes that the product creates for its users. And honestly, in creating my own OOUX training products, I am also guilty of this. So I recently realized I was reworking our landing pages for the OOUX Masterclass and the certification. And in both of these pages, I proudly claim that the course is 22 hours, which is true. I think it's more than that now. Thinking that it's so robust and you're going to get your money's worth. It's 22 hours and you get templates, lots and lots of templates and guides. And I had to be told, and I had to remind myself that you don't want a 22-hour course. You actually don't want a bunch of templates. What do you actually want? You want a transformation. You want something to change about your work and your career, all right? And you don't want templates just for the sake of a bunch of templates. You want to get started quickly. You want to plug and play, right? You don't want to mess around with getting everything set up with this new process. All right, and here's another funny one, and this all is going to have a point. On our certification landing page, I was boasting, looking back on this is so funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, Sophia, of course. This is not the way to describe and to even think about what you are giving people. So I'm boasting about the 16 assignments that you're going to submit during the certification process. It's so interactive and you get feedback and you have mentors. And that's awesome and true. But what you're actually getting is you're getting step-by-step course correction. So you can feel really confident that you're actually doing it right. And you're getting an amazing case study for your portfolio that shows your ability to think beneath to think beneath the surface strategically and structurally, with all these beautiful diagrams, that actually do turn into screens. You're getting that, you're getting an awesome case study. And of course, a repeatable process to be able to make more of these case studies if you so need that. So, and I just have to go ahead and say, yes, our now once a year flagship premium experience of the OOUX certification that I deliver in the fall is open right now. We are in open enrollment. It is a very short enrollment window. And right now, as of this recording, we are officially 50% full. And we've only been open for a few days. So that's really exciting. So it is filling up, y'all. Okay. Go to OOUX.com/certification if you are interested in enrolling. Okay. So I did some research on what transformations are actually occurring in people's lives when they are using OOUX. Okay. So what are the actual outcomes that OOUX and the ORCA process delivers? So I did some research and I had a lot of data to go through and I found a pattern. So I mined my hundreds of testimonials, reflected on podcast interviews, also I have hundreds of responses for when people join the OOUX forum. And basically we ask, what are you hoping OOUX is going to help with? So I looked at that too to see what are people desiring from OOUX, and every single one I'm like, yep, you're in the right place. So also if you want to join the forum, forum.OOUX.com. So what I found are these three main things that OUX gives people, and two of them I wasn't surprised about at all. The third one was actually quite surprising, and of course I'm going to save that one for last. And even though it was really surprising, all three of these aligned with my experience and why I created this methodology. So this episode is for you if you are still on the fence about whether you want to dive deeper into OUX, if you've been dabbling with all the articles and some YouTube videos and some talks, like, do you want to do this for real or not? Because you need to understand, like, this is what it's going to give you, okay? So I'll also provide my top tip for each of these three things on how you can start experiencing the benefits in this transformation right now, like from this episode. So yes, like if these kind of shifts are what you are looking for in your career, then I definitely want to invite you to go to OUX.com/certification and see if the program is for you. But of course, I also want you to get real value out of this episode in of itself. So I'm not going to leave you hanging. Cool. All right, let's get into it. So number one, I almost feel silly saying this, but it's like so true, even though it's so obvious. OUX just helps you feel really damn good at your job. Like, so one of my favorite testimonials is from Kristen G, and she says, I'm finally firing on all cylinders. And like, boom, that is it right there. It's like you have this, I've heard it being called a secret weapon a lot. So really what OUX and the ORCA process does is, if you're one of those people that like doesn't like any guesswork, you don't like designing in the dark, you don't like feeling like you're kind of making things up as you go along, and you really want to be able to confidently defend and articulate and rationalize your design decisions, like this is for you. Also, like you just want to be really proud of your designs, like knowing that they align and they satisfy all the convoluted business rules and that they aren't technically impossible, that even they're technically elegant, like your developer are going to be like, cool, that's awesome. And that, of course, are going to be really intuitive for users. Like having that deep knowing that you are presenting, that when you're presenting your design or you're testing or you're launching, like just knowing like this is good shit. All right. So when I was a consultant at Accenture, like my first UX job early on in my career, I just wanted so bad to know that I was like adding value. And I wanted others to see it too. Like I wanted to be a star UX designer. I thrive on recognition. I love my A+, but in this environment, like this is my first kind of big job out of college. And like before it was like, oh yeah, like I'm getting my A's. I got a good GPA. I'm getting all those gold stars. Like I know I'm doing good. And then I get out into the workforce and I was like, am I doing this right? Like, am I doing this good? Like, I kind of feel like I'm set up to fail. Like I'm being rushed into designing screens for software that I don't even freaking understand in a domain that I really don't understand. And I keep having to kind of go back to the drawing board. Like I would present my designs and be like, oh wait, like, no, we need this other thing over here. And like, actually this thing, oh yeah, that drop down right there doesn't need those values don't make sense. Like whatever, right? Like it always like didn't quite satisfy the business requirements because I didn't understand the business requirements, because I was like kind of arbitrarily moving the deck chairs around without understanding the real structure. So I was kind of like, I was playing what I like to call the bring me a rock game. I was like, is this the rock that you're looking for? And they'd be like, oh, no, not quite. Like, and they would like give me another requirement that like wasn't documented anywhere, or like maybe it was, I just didn't understand it, or I didn't quite get it. So like for the first time in my life, like I didn't feel like I was good at what I was doing. Like I always kind of like been like academically pretty successful. And I had at least had that feedback that I was, and now I was like, oh my gosh, like, do I suck at this? And I just wanted so badly to feel like I was good at it. So because the ORCA process helps you systematically and actually really quickly pick apart complexity and just ask really great questions and then create solid designs based on that solid understanding, you end up feeling like a freaking superhero. And it's just pretty amazing to feel that confidence in the face of any complexity and just feel like you're a badass playing this game of UX at this deeper level. So in short, I feel like the best way to say this is OOUX gives you X-ray vision into that system. And it lets you then share this incredibly useful X-ray vision with your team and like figure out all the high risk unknowns, right? So when you have that X-ray, you're like, ooh, like I see a problem here. Like we actually don't have good visibility in how these things work together. So my number one tip for starting to get that X-ray vision is, of course, objects, objects, objects. Look for the nouns, y'all, and ask these questions. Okay, so when you see a noun that you don't know what it is, like get it defined. Figure out what it is. Like be resourceful, Google it, chat GPT it, look it up in, the documentation. And then if it's still not clear, then go and start asking people. So figure out, okay, what are these things? See if you can get a little definition, find some instances of that thing, like actual examples of that thing. And then when you see things that are really similar, it's really important to say like, are these two things the same thing? Are these synonyms? Are these actually different things? Okay. So what is the difference between these things? Okay, so I remember this one from when I was working with Autodesk, and this was just like a really fundamental one. And we ended up talking for like an hour about this because we were not on the same page about it. And it was like, what is the difference between a design and a file within Autodesk? And we were having these like deep philosophical conversations. It's like that conversation had not been facilitated yet. So like, okay, you see these things like that might be the same or might be different, get to definitions of them. And then if they are different, it's like, okay, a design and a file within the Autodesk world, let's say that they determined that we collaboratively determined that, yeah, no, these are two different things. But when they're very closely related, you want to start thinking about the relationship between those things. So this is just a really great way to start getting the juices flowing, getting those definitions on the objects, getting some instances, some examples of like real world content, like real world so like real world examples of a design, which God, in our workshop, we were talking about like a pinball machine. So like the design being the Star Wars pinball machine for some company, but then like the file being like Star Wars pinball machine version 1. And it actually has a different structure to it. So yeah, get clear on your objects. Okay. Number 2, real deal collaboration. All right. If you're tired of the miscommunications and the scope changes and the repeated work because of a missing requirement, and you want to like your team, you want to like them, but when you're screaming in your head or into your pillow at night, like, why did no one tell me this 2 weeks ago? It's kind of hard to actually like the people that you're working with. And I love people. I love relationships. I want everybody to be one big happy family. And like, I'm very like Girl Scouts, get it from my dad. He wants everybody to like be working together and working on like, I kind of have like this Pollyanna view of what I want collaboration to be like. And I actually, with the Orca process, helped to create something that is very actually Pollyanna-esque. So many teams, y'all, like are just, and this might be you, you're just struggling to get on the same page, to communicate with a shared language. And you want even more than that. Like just communicating with a shared language is not even enough. Like you might not even be there, but you're like, you want even more. You want like that dream team collaboration where everyone brings their strengths together to solve a really tough problem. And you're actually working on that tough problem, not how to solve the problem. So on a previous podcast, this was a few years ago, but I just love this metaphor. So forgive me if I'm repeating it, but I love it. So Andrea Newhoff was talking about how with her team, it was like before Orca, it was like not only were all the puzzle pieces upside down, like everybody was working on different puzzles and didn't even know it. And like the puzzles, like somebody was like, had puzzle pieces from your puzzle and you had puzzle pieces from their puzzle. And some of the puzzle pieces on the table like didn't even fit. And the Orca process is like, let's get all the puzzle pieces turned right side up, and make sure we're all working on the same puzzle and that we don't have a bunch of like extraneous pieces that we don't even need for this puzzle, and that like no puzzle pieces are missing. And so it's still a challenge. Like you still like are working on this puzzle together, but like you have clarity. And like that's so much more fun. Like how it's not fun to be like at an Airbnb and you get out a puzzle and you're like, wait a second, like this piece isn't even part of this puzzle. And like, I'm pretty sure there's missing pieces. Like that's not fun. You want to get a complete picture, right? So this is that feeling of going from like, you're all working on different puzzles and like you're yelling at each other like, wait, you have that piece? No, wait, that's my piece. Or like that piece doesn't fit in here at all. You're all on the same puzzle and working toward the same vision and the same shared picture. So I've heard it over and over again. Orca brought my team together. Or finally, I'm having productive conversations with the developers. Or I actually like working with my stakeholders now. I don't feel like I'm, quote, wrangling my stakeholders. Like we're working together and they're bringing what they're good at. So it's like OOUX kind of gives you this Rosetta Stone and then you get to share it with everybody else, which is really fun. So you're speaking the same language about your product and your process. And y'all, I remember this. Like I remember literally the first 5 places that I worked in the first 5 years, because yes, I changed jobs 5 times. I left 5 companies and joined 5 companies in my first 5 years looking for all of this stuff, right? Like I was just like jumping around, kind of miserable, wanting something more. But I remember like just wanting so bad to have that beautiful collaboration where you're just like getting it done together. You feel that shared pride of figuring out that puzzle. And I just didn't have that enough. Like there were glimmers of that. And I was like, oh, I just want like every day to be like this. And I think this is why, a side note, like I think this is why teams, like a lot of companies have team building exercises, because the actual work just tears everyone apart because there's not a good system to bring everybody together. And like, I don't want to have to go get drinks after work or do a trust fall to feel camaraderie. And I remember doing that. It's like we would we would go out drinking together so that we could like get closer and bond. And it's kind of like a Band-Aid, right? Like you should have this awesome day together where you have this shared pride of feeling like you did something really tough together, but you worked through it with your strengths. And then like, if you want, go get a drink afterward because you're celebrating, not because you're like drowning your sorrows and like maybe trying to get some kind of connection to the people that you're working with. So the way that Orca does this is basically by slowing the roll on jumping into screens, because screens is UI design. It has nothing to do, like the business shouldn't care what the screens look like. The developers shouldn't care what the screens look like. It just needs to be good, right? That is the purview, that is the domain of a really great interaction designer and visual designer. I don't even think that's the purview of the UX designer, right? Which is maybe a little controversial. But what we do is we jump into screens and then we expect everyone to like reverse engineer, like a stakeholder needs to reverse engineer those screens to make sure it fits the business rules. And sometimes they don't catch everything because they're like not really trained often to look at screens. And then the developer has to reverse engineer those screens to figure out the data model and be able to say, ooh, wait, I don't think we have that data there. And that often will come later in the game, which is a problem, right? So what Orca does is we slow the roll on jumping into screens to save time and go faster in the long run by basically getting everyone to learn a simple language of color-coded boxes, and everyone can participate and get to the meaning of the bones of the system in this real game-like and approachable way. So my tip for this one to get you started is to run at least a 1 hour. It's better for like 90 minutes, just a boxes and arrows session. So you can use the nested object matrix if you understand the nested object matrix and how that works. But even if this is just boxes and arrows, so you've kind of figured out your objects, right? You're like, you have your definitions, you're sort of trying to figure out how they relate to each other, and just bring like your 7 most core objects and start with simple like 3 object diagrams, just like 3 circles with the objects and then arrows between them going both ways, and like labeling those arrows and like seeing how people can label those arrows. So I mean, a full object mapping workshop is great too, to go through the whole process of noun foraging collaboratively and then going through the nested object matrix and the CTA matrix and the object map. We have got a quick start guide for you. That's OUX.com/quick start. And that will teach you the basics. It's just like, I think it's like a 4-page guide. So it'll give you the basics. And of course, though, the OUX certification is going to help you feel really, really good facilitating these kind of workshops. Another thing that I want to point you to, so we have a quiz now. If you are also like, oh, you're still on the fence about the certification, go to OUX.com/certification quiz. And we have a quick quiz there. And I am not going to blow any smoke up your butts, because I want to have people in this program that are perfect for the program. So I am actually like looking at those and determining, like, are you actually, at the time of this recording, I'm doing it manually. I might not be doing it manually forever, but right now I'm actually looking at your answers, and I'm going to write you a response and say, like, I don't think you're going to be great, or the timing isn't right, or yes, come on in, like this is for you. And I will be totally honest. So that's OUX.com/certification quiz. Okay. Number 3, finally, this is the surprising one. So what's not surprising is y'all are tired of the chaos, the pants on fire, the let's just iterate, or like processes that are like design, build, test. Like, you deserve better, okay? Y'all want a structured, reliable, methodical, robust, and repeatable process. And now, like, I get this. I was there when I started at Accenture. They had a ridiculously complex and intricate process that made so little sense when we brought it into actual processes, or when we brought it into actual projects, that basically it was no process, because we were like, what do we do with this? Like, this is just like dozens and dozens and dozens of bullet points. So then we just didn't use it because it was basically brittle. So this was 15 years ago, so I'm sure that that's changed. I'm sure they have a great process now, Accenture. Not throwing Accenture under the bus. I'm just saying what was true for me 15 years ago. Everywhere else I went, it was just a mess. There was no even like dozens of bullet points. It was just like, oh, we're just gonna like make some screens, and we're gonna sketch, and then we're gonna do low fidelity wireframes, and then we're gonna do high fidelity wireframes. And this was before the time of design systems. But that was basically the process. And we're going to have like review cycles, and we're just going to bring the wireframes to people. And maybe we'll have some research in there, thrown in there. Maybe before, maybe after. Who knows? So it was really just a mess. So yeah, I wanted really reliable tools that gave me consistent, awesome results. And I knew intuitively that this was not going to hamper my creativity, but only enhance it, because I wanted to be able to focus on the problem, the actual puzzle, not the process, and making sure like all the puzzle pieces were the right puzzle pieces, and blah, 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 and just getting everything on the board. Like, I just wanted to work on the puzzle. So the great thing, which is interesting about guidelines and processes, is that good ones actually disappear once you learn them. So the problem at hand is what gets all your energy, which is a beautiful thing. So the reason that this is surprising to me is because process seems to have gotten a bad reputation, right? Like, I feel like I hear stuff like process is going to kill my creativity, or every project is different. I can't have a process. I need to be flexible, or a strict process just isn't realistic. And I like kind of agree with all those statements, except for the first one about creativity, because I truly believe that constraints breed creativity. And for what I said before, like, if you're not thinking about how to solve the problem, you can just put all your energy into the actual problem. So saying all this, like, in the past, I have been, and you've probably heard me do this if you've been listening to the podcast and listening to me for years or something, you've probably heard me downplaying the relief it is to use Orca. Like, just always knowing where to start, always knowing what to do next. And I've really been playing up how flexible and remixable and scalable it is. And it is all of those things, flexible, remixable, and scalable, when you want it to be. It is also a step by step by step plan that leads to better UX, more collaboration, and less rework every single freaking time, even if you can just do a little. But the more space and resources the process is given, the UX and the collaboration continues to get better, and the rework and the frustration continues to go down. So also, I have to say it, the more training the facilitator of the OOUX process has, the better the outcomes too. So even, but I will also say on the flip side, when I started using this, it was immediately like, I hadn't even really created it yet. I was just like kind of doing some embryonic version of this. And it was still adding value. So anything is going to add value, but I have been working on and improving my teaching of this for about 10 years now. And the actual process has gotten so much more robust and just better. I mean, if you work on anything for 10 years, it'd be weird if it didn't get better. So there is professional level training available to you, OOUX.com/certification. If you're listening to this episode at all in real time, like, go look, we probably still have spots left. If it's like anywhere like mid-August, we probably still have spots left. So go get your spot, okay? And again, we only run this cohort once a year now. So it's time to jump in. But believe me, we don't want to wait on this. So many of the testimonials I get are along the lines of, I only wish I'd done this sooner, or, oh God, I wish I'd had this on my last project. And I feel the same, like in those first 5 years that were just kind of torturous for me, like if I think back on these projects, like, oh my gosh, this project with this one agency for Napa Auto Parts, it was this e-commerce project, but it was so complicated because like this database was so old. It was like the Napa Auto Parts is an old company. And like, it was so important for people to get the right parts matched to their car. Like people could literally die if you got the wrong parts. And so it was like just such an interesting, like I had fun with it, but it was still so torturous because I didn't really have good tools. I was trying to figure out like all this like conditional logic and how this metadata, like the matching up of the metadata. And I was doing it like all through screen design and like some diagrams that I was creating, like some like flow diagrams. But if I'd had this, like, oh God, that project would have gone so much better. So y'all, if this sounds good, if these are the types of changes you're looking for, all right, just feeling more confident in your design decisions, collaborating, like really awesome collaboration. It's like way more fun. And then also just having that process that opens you up to solving the real problem. Like, yo, come on in, let's do this thing. So my tip here is learn the OOUX process, of course. And I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to give you the 3-minute rundown on this process. Okay, so basically OOUX, if you don't already know, stands for Objects, Relationships, CTAs, and Attributes. Okay, so what we do in the OOUX process is we go through these 4 times. So I'm going to go through the first 3 rounds, and the last round is representation, where kind of everything comes together. So the first round is discovery. So this is where you're just trying to ask as many questions as possible. So you do your noun foraging, you do your nested object matrix, which brings up so many questions. That's in the R of OOUX for relationships. And then for your calls to action, you do a CTA matrix. You have roles across down the y-axis and objects down the x-axis. And then you basically put all your functionality in the middle of that matrix. And then you do your object mapping. You bring in your core content and your metadata. We like to put core content on yellow and metadata on pink. And we basically create columns under each of our objects and build on top of the nested object matrix. Okay, that quick start guide is going to help you visualize this, okay? So that's OOUX.com/quickstart, okay? So that's discovery. That'll help you with discovery. Then what we do is we go through requirements, and you basically OOUX your OOUX. Like you go one level deeper, and you actually look behind the scenes at your objects, relationships, CTAs, and attributes. So that's where you're like really writing requirements on these elements, right? So you've broken down the system, and now you can get into a lot of details, and you can say things like, for this object, like, do we need to write about like some basic like permissions and privacy, or what is our overall content governance on this object? So you get into governance, you get into things like, do we have any success metrics on this object? Like how many of these things are users creating, or like things like that. So you can get into success metrics. And then for your relationships, we go through something called my cat saving fire department, which gets into things like cardinality, like deeper into cardinality, and the mechanics of like how these things get connected. But really, basically, you're writing about the things from a kind of a project perspective, right? So you're like kind of OOUXing the project. You can even bring in other objects like team members, like, so who's responsible for which object? You can start mapping relationships there. You can start bringing in phases. So phase might become an object where you have start and end date, and like major goals for each phase. And then you can start, when you do prioritization, which I will get to in a second, you can start actually mapping phase to these individual elements. Like, which objects are we launching in this phase? Which relationships are we going to be launching? Which CTAs? And thus the functionality behind the CTA, and what attributes as well. So when you get to the attribute requirements, you're doing things like saying which attribute is required, which attributes are not required, which attributes show up based on conditional logic or something like that. So it lets you just kind of like get in a level deeper. And then finally, we go through prioritization, and we can now prioritize our O's, our R's, our C's, and our A's, which is really cool because you prioritize you kind of move some objects to phase 2. And then, of course, it's going to move all the relationships and CTAs and attributes to phase 2 for that object as well. So you can kind of cinch down what you're focusing on while also having visibility into like the long-term picture. So prioritization is this beautiful phase. And then the last one is representation, where we bring it all together and we start building out really kind of high informational fidelity, but low visual fidelity prototypes, where we can say, okay, this is where all of this stuff translates into actual screens, and they end up being really gloriously intuitive and test really, really well. So that is the basics of the process in like, I don't know, was that 3 minutes? 3-ish minutes, something like that. But what if you spent 10 weeks with me learning it? Like, you're like, that doesn't sound that complicated. Y'all, I got 10 weeks. I got 10 weeks of challenges for you to really hone in this beautiful set of skills that is going to help you. I'll say it again. Just feel like a UX badass with your X-ray goggles on, and being able to collaborate and bring your team together in a really beautiful, fun way. And then finally, just having a process that, yes, is flexible and scalable and remixable, but also can fade into the background and let you really focus on the problem at hand, and let you channel all your creativity and all your energy into actually all of the complexity that is in front of you. So it is a beautiful thing. So again, if you're still on the fence and you're not sure if this is for you, if you're like, this all sounds great, but I'm still not sure, go to OOUX.com/certification quiz. And again, I promise I'm not just going to yes you. I do want the best people for this program because I want amazing testimonials on the other side. And if you're not right for the program, you're not going to give me an awesome testimonial. All right. So it is not in my best interest to tell you, yeah, you're great for the program. No, I'm not going to do that. So I will tell you if you are a good fit or not, and you can trust that answer implicitly. But if you are ready now to invest in your career and get that professional grade testing, then yay, amazing. I can't wait to meet you. The continued education experience of a lifetime is starting soon. So let's go to Target, y'all, for those colored markers and sticky notes and notebooks. For back to school season, you can enroll at OOUX.com/certification, get all the details there, and grab your spot. All right, happy OOUXing, y'all.
Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit objectorientedux.com/podcast for show notes. Our soundtrack is Fighter by Ruby Vell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Happy OUXing!